Okay, let's dive into it. So welcome everyone to the Smith.ai Master Series. This is a monthly webinar series, sometimes bi-monthly webinar series, where we talk to industry thought leaders and experts on various topics to help mostly small to medium-sized businesses really help grow their businesses through efficiencies and marketing and sales techniques and tactics. So today we have Cody Muenster from Cultivate Advisors, and we're going to be talking a lot about sales and the sales process today. So I have a number of questions here, but he's going to drive us through a short presentation that he has. And if you have any questions throughout the next 45 minutes or so, you can drop them in the webinar chat, and we'll get to Q&A at the very end. But Cody, let's have you introduce yourself, and then you can share screen and go through the presentation. And I certainly will not be timid to ask questions throughout. So let's do it.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. I'm excited to talk with you. My name is Cody Muenster with Cultivate Advisors. And our focus is we help thousands of business owners and entrepreneurs across the country, helping them really look at the whole picture and help them have a bigger picture of all the phases of your business, which we'll talk through in more detail. But as a business owner, you have to get good at looking at sales, marketing, finance. We're here to talk about sales specifically, but we're going to be talking about the whole picture. And this is just one slice of the pie. Our focus is actually helping you be diverse and actually competent in all sections of your business to take a well-rounded approach and not just silo the learning in just one specific area, because you're going to have to wear different hats at times. And that's the really crucial thing. So congratulations for being here. This is a really great decision to maximize your time. We're going to dive in a moment here. But I would love to see in the chat, if you can, just continue to engage with us. Where are you from? Where are you from? Could you please put that while I'm sharing screen? I would love to see where some of the participants are from and where you might be viewing from right now. We have at least one California person on the call today. Where are you from? New York? Hi, Tony. New York sounds nice right this time of the year. And also, I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, for any of those football fans out there. New York, California, that there's, Texas. Good job covering all this. Very smoky right now. We were talking about that, Canadian wildfires, kind of crazy things. But today specifically, let's jump in right away. We're going to talk about how to skyrocket your company's sales with irresistible offers. And now, I know that everyone can't see this, but if you do, there's a classic movie. I feel like if we're ever going to talk about sales in general, you got to reference this topic. So the movie Glenn Ross, who's seen it? Put it in the chat. This is a pretty iconic movie symbol. We're not going to be taking this hard of a lane on our content today, but I just felt like it had to get inserted at some place. And this will come back at some point, but we're going to talk about how to think about this a little bit differently and not just always be closing is part of our mindset, but how we can actually use this from a tactical standpoint to move people through your process, to engage with you and really support the efforts of working with you sooner to save you time and also increase your closing ratio and success ratio working with people. And for those of you that are joining for the first time, congratulations. If this is your first webinar or you're just joining us on this first conversation today, congratulations. But I know that you really have no idea what you got yourself into, but my aim is to absolutely serve and to be the best I possibly can to support you and help you really take this to the next level. I want you to imagine for a second, no, Tom, you and I were talking about this, but I want you to all imagine for a moment, you're 19 years old, you're in college, and you decide to start your first business. And it's a painting business, even though you have no desire to start a painting business, most likely, or those maybe someone in here is owning a painting business, but I want you to pretend that you decided to do that. Imagine if you were in that place and you ended up hiring 12 college kids to work for you full-time to paint houses in the summertime. And this is your first real job, your first real business that you owned. And then I want you to imagine that as you start taking this opportunity on your life, you decide that you're going to go about that you start hitting some stumbling blocks. You decide that you're going to go out there and you're in this pursuit to start a painting business and you do not close any sales. You essentially have upwards of 50 appointments trying to sell your company and your services, and you have people depending on you, and you haven't converted or sold anything. That was me. That was me when I was 19 years old. I got to the point where I was at a breaking point in my first company. I took that risk, and I had everyone in my life at that point thinking like, how is this going to be sustainable? You're going to start a business at this age. Why are you even starting this? It was an opportunity I wanted to, while I was going to school, I wanted to learn how to run a company and not just do some job somewhere. And the fortunate thing is even though I was really stressed, the first sale that I ever made in my life was a $7,200 sale where I painted my first house. I had 12 people that worked for me at that point. And fortunately, when the reason why I tell you this story is that was such a climatic moment in my life because I had so much doubt. As a business owner, have you ever had doubts about, starting and just thinking about now where you're currently at in your progression? Maybe you're hiring your sales team out. Have you ever had doubts of trying to advance the learning into getting people to help you support in your efforts and now duplicate yourself? Or maybe you're at wherever you're at. This is going to be for all content today, but what ended up happening is, fortunately, I had a mentor that really helped me at that stage of my business. He got me through a really tough time. I ended up transitioning through that, and I ended up being one of the top franchisees for this business that I started a long, long time ago. And since that time, I started and sold 4 different companies, and I learned a ton of lessons along the way. And Cultivate Advisors now works with thousands of people, and we help people through the trenches of, if you want to be a successful solopreneur, to having 50 plus multiple teams. Sales is a crucial aspect of this. So I do want to ask though, why did you start the business? Why did you start the business? Because as we talk about this topic, what's interesting is a lot of time we've asked thousands of people about this. And Tom, maybe it's like you maybe, I'm sure Smith.ai probably probes on this level too. And the times that we ask this question, people say things like, you want to do good work, you want to make an impact, you want to make a lot of money. And we also realize you can do that for working for someone else. So why do you take the risk? The reason is one word, and it's freedom, right? It's freedom. So you got into this business to create more freedom, but isn't like the irony is the more successful you become, the less freedom you actually have. And being an entrepreneur is hard work, and it doesn't get easier necessarily as you grow your business. You have to get stronger as a leader and a builder of people, processes, and systems. But any meaningful growth requires going through some growing pains. So throughout, we can talk about, and I really want to just talk about like, what are the 3 big problems that people face? Because even though we're talking about a siloed topic today, this has all got to fit into the big picture of what we're talking about for you. And I think number 1 is the 3 big problems is you own a job and you don't own a business. You're involved in every key decision and relationship. And, that's a big challenge. Number 2 is all financial eggs of your life are in one business basket. So we got to think about how do we diversify. And number 3 is over-sacrificing on personal, family, and health front. We see that a lot with people. But the good thing is there's 3 big possibilities as well. Because when you start graduating through these topics, the focus is starting to have like, how do you actually have these 3, which is business freedom. It's about creating a business that produces abundance in time and money instead of just owning a job. Financial freedom, number 2, is about multiplying your assets instead of having all your eggs in one basket. And number 3, it's personal freedom, personal choices. Instead of living in a world of continuing grinding it, and sacrifice, you can actually move through those. So by the end of this presentation, if you want some more supportive resource, our partnership, I'm so grateful for our partnership with Smith.ai because they do a lot of the heavy lifting in between the sales process and so many other things that can help you grow and scale the company or just to get to the success that you want. But ultimately, I want to share something that can be really, really useful with you that's going to help you through these phases. And truthfully, like our mission today is to really help you like really propel your business beyond expectations. To date, 2,000 companies, we said we're one of the fastest growing companies in America. This is something that I think we're just really proud of. And I think statistics like this is just like speak volumes about the nature of your work. And if you have something like this, share these things. We're proud to have almost 500 5-star Google reviews. We're proud to say that business owners that we work with in a 12-month period experience 65% bottom line profit growth over a 12-month period. Profit growth. And what is that going to mean to your business? Imagine if that was you. But really what we're here to do, Tom, we're here to celebrate the fact that we're all entrepreneurs, because isn't it lonely at times being the leader of an organization? I think this is why we got to have these types of events. And it's an honor to be here, because this is a picture of one of our Cultivate events where we get all the business owners that we have together certain times throughout the year so that we can actually celebrate the hard stuff that you got to go through. But you got to really remember, in the big picture of all this stuff, in order to propel it, you got to have an even propeller. If you're going to take off to the next phase of your business, as we talked through today, you got to have a well-rounded approach. Because, Tom, question for you. If you're looking at this, and these are all the phases of your business, this image right here is a propeller. So if you're flying an airplane or a boat and one of these propellers is bent in the slightest, what will that ride feel like?
It's going to be a bumpy ride, mate.
It's going to be a bumpy ride, mate. Yes. And the thing is, as we go through this, you got to think about each one of these businesses as these are each individual businesses within your business. It's once you start conceptualizing, that's how I got to treat this. This is, so how do I consistently work on this and this and this versus just defaulting to your strengths? Not saying that you shouldn't work just on your strengths, but how do you really make sure that you got people or other people like a Smith.ai or other things that are going to help you execute on these areas? That's the big opportunity. But let's transition now. Now we're going to talk about sales. And let's go into what's the opportunity. So I want you to ask yourself this question. I'm just going to pretend a current scenario. What's it actually worth to you to get better? And let's just say that we were to increase just 10%. Think about this is one quick example. So let's pretend that your business has a monthly sales goal, very low, but let's say it is, as a starting point, is you have a monthly goal of $5,000. Your average deal size, your average client that you work with is $1,000. You're converting 12% of the opportunities in front of you that you get to speak with. And the number of hours that your business prospects is 2 hours a week. Well, you would need new sales needed would be 5, new prospects needed 42, hours needed 83, and hours per week would be 19. But if you just got 10% better on the amount of opportunities you had at bat to get base hits or to win more deals, I want you to know what that actually means to you. For this example, same example, if we just improve that 10%, we took the deal size, look at, if we just got to an overall conversion of people that come to you and increase that by 10%, your hours, look at where the changes start happening. The new sales that you would needed and the new prospects needed now goes from 42 to 23, and the hours needed cut in half, by more than half of 40, but the hours that you per week go to 9, and the time that you save is you 2x your sales goal just by converting 10%. So the power in this, as we go through this, is this is the lowest bar that I want to make sure that we establish, but I also want it to be realistic to you, but also write down or just at least calculate in your mind, what will 10% more conversion revenue mean for you in this next 12 months? Because that's what we're going to go after. So here's what we're going to cover really quick at a glance. Tom, we're going to go through the increasing your closing percentage at least 10% or more. Number 2, we're going to shorten your sales cycle to save you time. Number 3, let's talk about ways to create your irresistible offers to win more customers. Now, this is not a marketing presentation per se, right? That's a very different conversation, because what's the difference between sales and marketing? Tom, in your opinion, how would you explain that?
Marketing is really driving demand, interest, awareness, really casting that wider net to build awareness amongst target audiences, who you are, yes, what you do. Sales is bringing them into that funnel and really carrying them to the finish line.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so important for them to work hand in hand, because they are a team and they should be a team.
Yeah, which I know that you had that fun buzzword, smarketing, because they're working together, tangent. But what we're talking about on this topic specifically, it's go back and listen to the marketing ones. But this one is everyone that is engaged with you, a lead that has come into your world. We're talking about how to have a higher batting average for everyone that's already in engagement with you. So just to clarify that going forward, but there's a huge opportunity to not overlook this factor, because a lot of times people are like, more leads, more leads, more leads. And it's just like, why not take better care and convert more of the ones you currently have, the number of at-bats, before we move on to the next thing. So that's what we want to have established. You got to do both, clearly, more leads. We also have to this. So here's the thing that I want you to figure out throughout this presentation is just find the one thing, the one gold nugget that you're willing to implement, because that'll be your fastest way to succeed. And this is my promise. Stick around to the end. We have a very quick, this is going to take you 2 minutes max, a quick questionnaire about what was valuable and how useful and what's your biggest takeaway. We're going to give up to $2,500 worth of incredible resources because of our partnership with Smith.ai. I'm going to talk about that specific. This is exclusive to you that are viewing today. So I want to really make sure, and if you're listening to this, you're going to have access to this too, but just make sure that you stick around, and we'll make sure that we get this out so that people can complete this. As you're looking at this picture is of a buffet. So I'm going to come at multiple different directions because everyone is at a different place with this. So I want you to, as you're hearing this buffet of topics that's going to get, or strategies and insights, I want you to find like the one thing that's the best thing on your menu, and just remind ourselves that you're all at different stages, and that's okay. Some of you are just solopreneurs. Some of you are really starting to establish teams. Some of you might be in your succession planning of your business. You might be in the last 5 years of looking to hand it off. Those are exciting times, but all this stuff today is going to be pertainable to you. And we just got to remember it's not rocket science. So I just want to dive in with you. So there are two kinds of salespeople that we have found. Two kinds. One is, I want you to imagine an image, of a machine gun squirrel. Tom, if you had to take a guess, like if you had to identify a persona of someone that is a machine gun squirrel, what does that mean?
You're probably using the metaphor for the spray and pray model, I would imagine, right?
It's a playful way to say that, hey, here's all the great stuff that we can do, and you just spill it all into the table and hopefully something sticks. But this is also like this. So that's one type. And the other persona is, are you now, or are you the sniper kitty? The sniper kitty is where we actually want you to get to. And some of you might already be the sniper kitty, but if you had to think about that metaphor, Tom, this is the one that's like, you're really warming up to people. Like you're genuinely, authentically building that relationship connection. You're demonstrating that you care for that person. But then when they least expect it, you pop them right between the eyes and you sign the deal, right? That's what a sniper kitty is in the world. And so the good thing is, if you're like, oh, I'm someone, or my sales team is they're machine gun squirrels right now. It's like, we're going to work on getting them to sniper kitties. And if you're already a sniper kitty, if that metaphor is resonating with you, we want to work to now get you to an advanced level of sniper kitties so you can hit targets that are further and find further and better opportunities. But the ultimate thing that we're here to do is I want you to think about today's opportunity as like you're going marlin fishing. I want you to pretend you're going marlin fishing. Tom, have you ever fished in your life before?
I've fished, but it's usually for like sunfish around the block and not for big marlins in the deep sea.
Well, what might be the difference in the tackle used for sunfish and panfish versus catching a marlin?
I'd have to imagine that it's better quality tackle, bigger tackle, and really focused on lures that are specific to marlins.
Yes. And you look at this and it's like, it takes a team of people. If you just can imagine that you're fishing on the open ocean on a boat and you hook a marlin. Like I actually caught a marlin with my wife last year, and I remembered like the amount of energy. It took over an hour and a half to land a 7-foot, 100-pound striped blue marlin. And I love to, like, I'm from Midwest Wisconsin, and I love to go fishing for like smaller things, but it was such a mind-bending trip of the difference that you needed to land that. So what's the point? We're going to need, if you want to catch more marlin, meaning bigger clients, better opportunities, more ideal clients that you want to work with, you're going to need some bigger tackle. You're going to need some different type of preparation. And that's what we're really, really going to be thinking about. And before we do that, we're really going to talk about some low-hanging fruit opportunities. Low-hanging fruit, because as we start off in this and we get really specific and tactical, like I'm going to ask that you really stay with me. And if you're listening to this, like get a pen and paper ready, because if you follow this furiously with me and you just go through the process, you're going to have some like great opportunity to identify some ways that we can maximize your sales process to like get you like those bigger opportunities. But we're going to start with just some low-hanging fruit. So this isn't rocket science. We're going to start with some simple ones, but these are the ones that, Tom, when we talk to thousands of companies of all different sizes, so many times it gets overlooked. I got a question though. It's just like, do you have any prospective customers who have inquired or a lead has come into your business to work with you, and you started engaging with them and talking to them, and then they just kind of went cold? Did you ever have that opportunity happen? Most times. What was that?
I have. I think everybody probably has.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of these interesting things, because you're just like, what is the, what does that actually mean? It's like, where'd you go? Right? You just want to hear one way or there. Even if they tell you no, it's better than hearing it's just like, but there's this opportunity. And what we have found is there are probably, I mean, almost every company virtually has some aspect of this, and it is all over the board to the size. Some people have, I've talked to a financial advisor who have maybe like six of these types of conversations that are just engaged with the prospect and then go. I talked with the land surveyor yesterday who has, just in the last month, he's got 40 open proposals that have just kind of, we're not even sure what the next step is. They haven't said yes, they haven't said no, but they're kind of on like this waiting period. So the first thing we want to install is, I want to talk to you about the magic email to revive cold leads. So this is a little bit of a psychology thing, but one thing that we're going to do, and I just want to talk about the example, is I want to talk through this example. And this is just one example. If we were ever going to engage with these people at a marketing conference that I attended years ago, I never forgot this, because it was like the easiest thing to do. Like if you did nothing else today and you just did this, my hope is that this makes you potentially hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because it has for other people. And all you do is this. You simply gather up the leads that you have, the people you haven't heard from. You send an email, and the email has the person's first name in the subject line. And then the body of the email has their name. It says, "Hi, Michael," or "Hi, Steve. Are you still looking for, or are you still interested in," and then insert whatever that thing is that you talked to them about. And then the thing you put after that is you just put your name. Tom, I'm just curious, like when you think about this, or I know that you're looking at this image, but if you're helping your listeners just conceptualize this, like what are the thoughts and feelings around this that you're experiencing?
A few things crossed my mind. One, the single most important word to anyone is their name. But like that's been proven, right? So you're going to recognize and open up this email simply because the simplicity, the straightforwardness, and the fact that the subject line includes your actual name, right? So now you just got their attention, and you got them to read the email. And then secondly, the brevity and the simplicity of the message itself. If you open it up and there was a big block of text, which we know a lot of salespeople get into that mindset where, let me just word vomit everything that I can about my offering, so that way I can hope and pray that they're going to read something that catches their eye and hooks them, right? But that's not even going to happen, because they're not even going to read the email when it's that long. So the simplicity of that one single line is also very powerful. And the fact that it's a question, it prompts an action. So those are the three things that immediately come to mind when I just look at this very simply structured email of, "Hi, Michael, are you still looking for a house in Georgetown, Ramona?" Like that, it's powerful.
It's so good that you mentioned those aspects, because you're absolutely right on the subject line. If you get 50 to 100 emails a day, you're going to open the ones like immediately with your name. So there's that. And what's the point and goal of this email? It's just to get back into conversation with them, right? Remember, these are the people that have gone, you haven't heard from, or you're not sure if they're still interested or what. So just asking them the question. Imagine if they were standing in front of you and you saw them on the street, and you would say, "Hey, Tom, it's good to see you again. Are you still interested in that? Are you still interested in an estate plan?" And just this thing, as simple as this is, if you just did this one thing, Just the challenge that people have though, is they become machine gun squirrels. They put in, I hope you're having a great day. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be a professional. And some people are like really hesitant to do this because it's like, oh, I should say thank you. How have you been? All those things. And I'm not saying don't be like a considerate person, but I'm just saying just try it. Remove the temptation to put added fluff in there and just do this. So your action, add up, pool together all your open leads, create an email with the subject line first name. Hi, first name. Are you still interested in this? First name. And here's the thing you got to be ready for. Some of you that are listening to this might have more than, and I'm curious just for some of those, Kaylee and Tony, Sebastian, if some of those people that are in the chat, do you have, can you think of maybe upwards of like five or more people that this might be possible to introduce? Because if you do, I want you to be prepared. I want you to be prepared that when you send this, if you have a big list of people, be prepared on the response. This is where, like, you know, partnering with companies like Smith.ai and like thinking more strategically along the lines, if they respond back and they say yes, have a response around, great, love to talk to you about this. Does next week at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock work for you? Everything that we're talking about, Tom, is just like super efficiency. Like we're not going to complicate this part of it. So just be prepared with a very thoughtful, like just get them back into conversation because you're awesome at what you do. You truly are experts at each one of your own businesses. So just get them into conversation and move on. Again, we could talk at length in this, but I just want to move on from that. Sound good?
Yeah.
Next one is we're really going to dive into like some more efficiency, like mindsets, and just like talk about some like practical things to really help us take and really skyrocket and start thinking bigger, broader strokes. You know, if you're really going to take the sales to the next level, if you're thinking about installing and having, you know, people that are going to do sales for you, you already have a sales team, regardless if it's one person or 21 people, you got to have some type of a playbook. You know, if you don't already have a structured playbook in place, and let's not overcomplicate this, Tom, you know, for example, I'm sure it'd be interesting to know what Smith.ai's playbook looks like on this, but I mean, you don't have to go into depth, but just having a one pager of just, here's the steps to our sales process, because here's the most important part. Once you understand the steps of each of your sales process, like from an initial conversation to a proposal meeting or whatever, isn't it true that that's when you actually can coach people on it? You can actually evaluate it. But if you don't have that actually documented and clarify, here's the ideal outcome, that's where companies really struggle, because they're just trying to figure out, they're trying all these spray tactics and they're like, well, if I do this, it's like, we just got to put together a playbook. So if you're in the 1 to 2 people like kind of category of like the getting it going solopreneur and you want to take it to the next level, it's like, write out your playbook. If you've already got a playbook, that's great, because we're going to talk about something else that's going to really take it to the next level now.
You know, I think too, I'm going to mention this too, Cody. I think you saying that it needs to be documented is really, really critical. And that's why I'm going to emphasize it, because you could put your sales team through sales training, which is fantastic. And I'm a huge advocate of ongoing repeated sales training. But if it's not documented and you can't look at it as a resource when you're actually on that sales call, it's really hard to remember everything that needs to be addressed and every question that you need to ask. We all freeze up at different times and in different ways when we're in the midst of that pressure of making a sale, especially if you're behind on quota. So having that literally on your screen to remind you of the type of questions that need to be asked to get that information extracted from the prospect and to help qualify them so that you can either move them on to the next step or politely excuse them. All of these things are really, really important for actually managing that sales journey effectively. And if you don't have a sales book to actually look at as a resource to help you with this, you're really setting yourself up to fail. Yeah, good reminder. And that sales book too is, you got to remember when we went from 4 people and now we're at 154 people, I think, and the understanding and the realization that everyone's got so many different learning styles. And some people need this visual guide of just like, help me conceptualize how this works. And
so many businesses just like, they're just talking about, this is our sales process and they explain it, but you need to give people like that written down, like outlined version of like, what is your playbook, so we can continue to coach on those individual steps. And that's a huge, huge opportunity to not overlook. Well, we started with this. We mentioned Glengarry Glen Ross as just like the iconic sales movie, but I want to come back to that reference because this whole thing about always be closing, I'm going to throw it on its head a little bit. I'm going to flip it. It's not just always be closing, it's always be selling to the next step. So what do we mean by that? This is where you have an abundance of opportunity to save time for you throughout the process. So all, if you remember one thing from today, remember this one, which is always, always, always schedule the next step when you're talking with a prospect at any stage you're in your sales process, because it saves you so much time. The amounts of time and then schedules, we're talking like tens of potentially like almost up to 100 hours of just like actual researched time that's wasted. And what I mean by that is the importance of the follow-up, right? Because how many times, Tom, do you meet someone at an event, or you have a conversation with someone, or you present a proposal to someone and it's like, oh, that's great, let's talk next week, or I'll be in communication with you. And how long?
Brush-offs are so common. Brush-offs are so common. And that, another reminder about that playbook, because you need to incorporate objections and brush-offs and how your team is actually going to handle them in the moment, because you'll accept that. You'll accept, contact me again in 6 months, or send me that material through email and I'll follow up with you. And now you just completely lost control of the sales process. So making sure that those brush-offs and objections are listed inside of that playbook is really critical too. Really good point.
You know, like the importance of follow-ups. And this is just something like for us to remember as a group today. It's only 2% of sales. Only 2% of sales are made on the first contact, typically in the average organization. And 80% of sales are made on the 5th through 12th contact. So this emphasizes the importance of diligent follow-ups. This also emphasizes the helpful resource that Smith.ai can really provide you to help with the follow-up process. And there's so much data that, you know, it's like we're going to get into. It's just when the speed of contact, when a lead comes in, having someone instantly connect with them through a phone call like Smith does, or through a follow-up on social media, an inquiry or whatever, the chances like 10 to 20x of like the opportunity of that coming back to you within the first couple of minutes. It's just like, these are things that we hear. It's like, oh, that's really great, but how are we actually doing a really good job with that? So I just want to talk about this just for a minute, because this is important, because I think a lot of times people are like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, what's an example? So when you meet someone at a networking event, for example, it's a pretend like, imagine you're having a great conversation. If you've ever had this, and you gather and you exchange information because you actually agree that it's a good opportunity to follow up with people. How many of you carry your calendar on your phone? Almost everybody now. Instead of saying, hey, I got your business card, or let's do that, let's reach out, just say, hey, that's awesome. Like, do you want to schedule a call right now? I have next Tuesday available. And just do it right there. Right there, you just saved yourself 1 or 2 email exchanges back and forth. You can just do it at the event. And sometimes you just got to people just like have confidence. Don't feel like this is such an aggressive move. I want to give you the ability just to say, how can I just be a masterful at efficiency and moving people through? If you can do this for yourself, but also coach your people, this is one example. Number 2 is during an initial call. Say a prospect calls you and invites you, and you have that discussion with them. Always talking about like their needs and now scheduling the next step. We're going to talk about that in more depth, but just don't leave the conversation until the next step is booked on the calendar. I would think you would agree with this, Tom. Like, I feel like even us, like having these conversations was really helpful, is just leading up to it. It's like, great, we're going to prepare for this event. When are we doing our preparation? We always have the next step scheduled, right?
Always. You never leave the one meeting until the next one is booked. And I've been to a lot of events, both networking, trade shows, association, educational seminars, whatnot. And this is the first bullet point you have here when you meet someone at a network event. Try to immediately schedule that call while you're on site, because what happens, and we've all done this, we get back home, we go through our business cards, we have 1,000 emails waiting for us because we've been out of the office for a few days. It's usually like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday event. So you have the weekend now and no one's thinking about it. By the time Monday and Tuesday rolls around, you may not even remember the people that you talked to, even if it was a fantastic opportunity that you talked about while you were on site at the event. You have to book it right then and there when they're excited about what you have to say and about you solving or potentially solving their problems, their business problems. So that's a really important step that I would go out on a limb and say 99% of event attendees do not do this.
99% do not. And this is why it's going to change for everyone on this call today. Like, I just really want to make sure that we solidify, because this is a huge opportunity. I mean, I think you might even have some stats on this, Tom, but through our research, it's when you meet someone and you engage with them, if you don't schedule the next step with them or the initial conversation or whatever that might be, within 5 days of that first contact, if you do schedule it within 5 days, the show up rate is like 80%. After 5 days, it drops down to 60% or less. Just think about that for a moment. And it's so easy to conceptualize, like, well, what is that? How does that factor in? Every day that passes, you become less and less memorable unless you're really supporting them and sending them valuable information. So you got to remember, you have a crazy, like, small window that you just got to, like, take advantage of, be assertive, and walk people through. And you can really coach your people on this. But I want to talk about this one because I think this is where the biggest money opportunity truly has. So many people have a lot of, depending on your business, if you're not selling, unless you're selling a product, if you're selling a service, this one really helps. And we're talking about when you actually make a proposal. What is the classic thing that happens when someone makes a proposal and doesn't book or land or work with you on the spot? What do they say? Let me think about that, right? And what is the time frame that they usually say? Let's get back together in a week. What do we do in those moments? Okay. I would lean into just, like, think about how you handle those, because I would challenge you in this moment. This is probably one of the greatest opportunities that you could have to convert and have, like, a higher influx of money faster with working with your people and just, like, not dragging this thing out. Statistically, from what we've seen, it's over 80% of the time that if people don't book with you on the proposal meeting and you talk to them, and if it's farther than 48 hours after that conversation, if you say, call me in a week, almost 80% or more don't go with us. And we've had thousands and thousands of conversations. So what's interesting is, I want you to get good at just scheduling the next step. Someone says, hey, I love this. Like, let me get some time to think about it. I'd say, great, that's awesome. Help me understand what you want to think about. Talk to them about it. Like, be authentic. Like, what are you thinking about? Because if you just ask that question, you might discover some things that were missed along the way that you didn't even talk to them about, that they needed some clarity on. So that's one opportunity. But the other thing is just to invite them and say, oh, okay, like, now that I know what you're going to be thinking about, how about we do this? How about we schedule? Let's give yourself a little bit of time, but let's just keep things going to keep our momentum. And I just want to help you. Ultimately, I care to help you make a decision one way or the other. I truly believe that we can help you based on, do you agree on that? Yes. Hopefully you're building that rapport and dialogue to confirm that they are competent. Because if they're wavering, clearly there's a concern that you haven't addressed, right? So we have to get to this point where you're clarifying in their mind, because if you just leave open space for them they're going to second guess themselves and they're going to go a different direction. So your opportunity is to schedule within 48 hours of follow-up conversation. No longer than 3 days, if at all possible, because anything further than that, your chances go through like double digits through the roof that you're going to lose that opportunity. If you just get good at these 3 things, think about the time efficiency through each and scheduling to the next step. And that's where I really want you to get. Good there?
I would just emphasize that making sure that there's an actual meeting for that proposal review is super, super important. This is giving me very bad PTSD right now, because I was selling marketing services in a past role, and the services weren't cheap. The proposals were anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000, and I would send that off and let them review that on their own. And that was such a critical, horrible error, because there's so many questions that are going to come out of this is their entire marketing budget, their entire marketing budget that they're potentially spending. And of course they're going to have pushback and questions and wonder why they need this if they have this, or why they can't take this in-house when they should be outsourcing to us as the agency. There were so many questions that I knew they would have. And just because I believe them when they said, hey, I want to look at this on my own.
Yes.
Go ahead and send, instead of saying, no, I know that there's probably going to be questions here. Let me walk you through this, and I can better explain how we arrived at both this package and this pricing. It would be a much better, fruitful conversation if we can go through this together. That's all it would take. I know it sounds like it's a little bit uncomfortable to not just accept them at face value what they're requesting, but I lost more deals than I can count, because I would just listen to them, send that proposal off, let them go through it on their own, let them go through it with their superior or whoever the signing manager was, without me there to defend what it was that I was proposing to them. And it really cost me quite a bit of money for the company and for myself in terms of bonuses.
And this is interesting because it's like I'm working with a marketing agency specifically on this one thing that we talked about 6 months ago about this, and their closing percentage is about 20%. And they're sending off, like to your point, I mean, their average proposal is like $10,000 plus, sometimes up to 50, 60, some of these bigger ones.
Yeah. And
it was just like, that was the thing of just getting them. You don't ever send a proposal unless you're reviewing it with them on the spot, because you get to go through the dialogue. You get to have the true decision makers there. And that's a whole nother conversation in itself, is just the art of inviting people and the key people that are going to be part of this, to educate them along the way. It's a whole nother like next level thing. But if you just start to say, schedule next steps, no matter where I talk to somebody, and when it gets to the end, if you can't land it on the spot, or you're having a proposal, like always schedule the next one just to keep the momentum going. If you just did that, the confidence going up of just how you're going to close deals faster and get more opportunities is really, really significant. And I just don't want anyone to like look past that. Good.
Right.
So we're still in low hanging fruit, Tom. and I think this is like the important one, is just to remind ourselves that what really helps people really move things forward. And this is through like the art of human history. When you look back and back to the early caveman days, it's like, what were we all good at about transferring our knowledge? It was how we transferred our knowledge was through storytelling. Everyone on this call is like, yeah, of course, I've heard that so many times. But really, I want to ask you a question. Are you sharing vivid customer success stories? What do I mean by that? People that have really gone through a similar experience like your prospect is going through. And are you explaining, in obviously a confidential way at certain points, are you explaining what they've went through and what outcome they've experienced? If you are not currently doing that, it is a huge opportunity, because that is how people connect of what you actually do to the process. Because a lot of times it isn't. But here's the second thing. Not only do you need I just want to simplify it down, because we have people that are in sales roles for us that, when you're working with a business owner, I mean, isn't it true? You probably have anywhere from a half dozen to more like fires that you've got to put out at all times. So there's a lot of different ground that you can cover. What we have found is you just got to get great at identifying the number one pain point that they want to solve. If you just share customer success stories, share the number one pain point, it is amazing how much traction you can get to just not overcomplicate your process and to move things forward. And I like, when I think about, how we share this, if I'm talking to an audience, if it's attorneys, like I'll talk to you, it's like, here's an example of an attorney. This is a real example where an attorney came to us and he was overwhelmed with a couple of things. If you're a busy attorney, you're overwhelmed with your schedule, maybe you're not making the ideal income. Matt, this is a real client of ours, Matt Bremer. He came to us with these things. He didn't have enough free days. He knew exactly what he wanted. But when he started working with us, it was like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. And we started laying out a roadmap of how we're going to get there. And through time, like working through each one of these things one by one, today, this fast forward a couple of years, as he's been working with us, he's now in 3 years, he's still making small tweaks to increase revenue. He's tripled his income. He's got a better quality of life, and he's really constantly like tweaking and improving all the different phases of his life. But he's really just found a zone. He like actually knows how to manage all the intake. He's building out multiple teams of people right now. And that's just one example if I was talking to an attorney. But I think a lot of times there's business owners that come in, and Tom, it's like they want to get to a point of growth, but they also want to get to a place of succession, meaning exit, even if you don't want to. And I'll share a story where this is a real story. I mean, a couple of years ago, we were working with this person's name is Jason, and in a landscaping company. And the big thing with him is it was just constant overwhelm and like safety issues around the work. And he just wanted to get to a point of like, I want to exit the business. Now he's 41 years old. And through a period of 5 years of working with him, over 5 years, we grew his business by 25% or more year over year. And then we helped him find the potential buyer. He sold the company, and he now works for it because he still loves the industry. He just wanted to remove all the risk, and he's got a huge equity stake in the business as the business grows. And he's 41 years old. He's got a great young family. He's a contributor above and beyond. Like he's got a nonprofit that he funds for, a village of kids in Uganda that he's giving back because that's him and his wife are like, that's what they care. That's part of their mission that they want to be doing. I tell you these stories because you all have your own stories. And if you're not sharing them, you have to be, because they're going to absolutely change the outcome. And sometimes it's just like, how do you insert them into your current process is what we really got to figure out. Okay. So if you're taking notes, I'd like to invite you really quick to do something. I want you to come up with like homework assignment. I need to identify what are the 3 biggest pain points prospects experience. And then I want you to identify for each of those pain points, the 3 biggest ones that you hear over and over again. If you can help kind of identify what those are, then create a success story for each and share visuals. If you can, if confidentiality isn't a big issue, share visuals, talk about the example, and you can help equip your sales team. Because Tom, this is like the huge one. A lot of times when people hire salespeople, they don't have a lot of success unless they've done that thing before in a different industry. So what we got to do is we got to give them the success stories so that they can tell them. They have to be ready to tell them our stories or like what other but if sometimes we're not even teaching them those practices. And then what ends up happening is people become they become the persona of the machine gun squirrel. And that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, reviews and testimonials are so important. And everyone on this call has heard that for years, especially with the rise of Google reviews and how it plays into the search algorithms and companies finding you and the impression it makes when somebody sees a high review, a high score in these review channels. But it doesn't stop there. I think a lot of business owners stop there.
Yes.
You need to have your sales team take those reviews, take those testimonials, take those case studies, and for lack of a better word, memorize those stories. So that way they can repeat them in a very personal way on their sales calls. Because let's be honest, buyers are somewhat lazy. If you send those links, you're leaving up the chance for them to read them through, and you can't say it with emotion and actually put color behind that description of what the story actually entails and the problem that they face and how you actually help overcome that. You can only include so much in a case study landing page or one sheet or however you package it up. Your salespeople need to know these stories in and out and be able to deliver them in a way that's really, really impactful. And that's going to make a big difference.
Totally. And just even if it's a broken record, if they memorize those stories, they can figure out ways to tell those stories. The more elegantly they can tell those stories with confidence, your success will improve, because that's what people learn from. Then they can figure out, okay, it's like, all right, I just got to go. What do I got to do? I got to tell better customer success stories. I need to identify the key number one point to solve in their life that's really painful, and this is how we're going to help them. And here's an example of how. If you just get great at doing that, you can duplicate that effort with a sales playbook to anybody as far as you want to build out the team. And then, of course, you hold accountability and all those wonderful things that we're going to get into. But I want to make sure that we also help people that are listening to this, like really think about how they can win more. Because if we're just talking about, I want to help people win 20, 30, 40% more deals if that's possible. Like I actually believe it's possible to get up to win 80% of the deals that you come across. And if you're winning per perspective, we actually did some research on this. If you're winning more than 80% of the time, like 8 out of 10 times that someone works with you, 9 out of 10 times, typically that's an opportunity to raise your prices, just like food for thought, because it might either be too low or you have an opportunity. And that's a great scale metric and a lever you can pull as a business owner. But really, we want to get to the place where it's like, how do you increase like massive jumps into the success ratio? And here's what we've found. Like when we remove the risk, there are some classic stories. So I want you to think about, how are you currently removing the risk, and how could you possibly remove the risk to win more customers to work with you? So here's what I want to examine. Tom, are you familiar with the story of Zappos?
A little bit back in the early days of social media, because they were such a social media driven company, but I know that they used to put everyone through customer service training.
Huge, right? I mean, they really went through customer service. But I want you to, like, for those of you who aren't familiar with Zappos, Zappos is an online shoe company, right? You go on and you buy a shoe, but who was their ideal customer? They identified that their ideal customer was women. And they had some like, you got to remember, this is a very competitive space. So even though it's a completely different industry than you, I want you to think about this, like how you can apply this thinking, because they went from an average company to over $1 billion company because of what we're going to talk about, how they removed the risk. And it's a classic story because it makes you think about, like, how are we doing this as an organization? How can we remove the risk to get people to try us out? And that's all it is. So typically when you buy a pair of shoes, what do you think? Like if you buy a pair of shoes online, what are the thoughts that come across your mind? You're probably like, are they going to fit? And if you're worried about that, what are the chances that you're going to buy more than maybe 1 or 2 pairs? Probably pretty slim. But what they figured out is if they can just do what? As soon as they did this, as soon as they removed the risk of having to pay anything for shipping there or back, buy as many as you want. And if you like them, great, keep them. If you don't, send them back, no hassle. They installed that. They became $1 billion company in less than 6 months of doing this. And here's like the really fascinating thing is they found, the funny part about the story is they found that sales massively increased. They actually would, like, I think they doubled the amount of pair of shoes that were purchased through this process at minimum. And what they found is women, because they were their ideal clients at the time, they would conceptualize, if they bought a pair of shoes and it fit, they would keep them on average higher, because what they could do is they could conceptualize a time or an event in the future when they might wear that pair of shoes. And it was like fascinating research, because all they did, they just had to get them to that point of thinking that way. It's like, hey, I'm going to wear this to a wedding possibly in the future. Whether they did or not, that's what they figured out their target audience was. And all they had to do was remove the risk. So here's the question that I want you to bring to your company, because I know we're coming up on time. And we could cover a lot more in depth on this, which is I want you to think about how you could potentially remove the risk. What are ways that you could almost make the experience with you like seem really irresistible to try and test you out? And some of you, I think, like once you get yourself in a creative spot, like put all those, Tom, what we have experienced when you ask a business owner to do this, there's a lot of fear and worry that comes up. Because someone might be like, I don't know how to put a guarantee or a money back offer on like my service. I'm not saying necessarily you have to do that, but if you did, just remember, you just want to test out to see what the response is. Don't feel like you have to do this forever, right? Because that's just fearful thinking. Like, because you might say, well, my gosh, what if I do this and then, one customer, takes advantage of it and they don't, then whatever happens, I want you just to be experimenters. As business owners, you got to be wearing a lab coat. And I think that's part of the pursuit of this, is just to think through what you could do to remove the risk. For example, like us, like we truly remove the risk when working with us, because not only do we help a business owner assess their company and just really evaluate the health and the current valuation of their business, like what it is in today, but we also give them up to 2 hours of free advising time with a senior business advisor on our team to help them lay out a roadmap towards the goals that they want. And it's absolutely free to people that are qualified to work with us. And we do that because even if they don't work with us, that's the way that we give back to people. We all have owned companies in our business before, and we want to give back to the marketplace. And that's how we really connect with people. So I think I really wanted to share this because this is usually a huge opportunity for people. The last one, and just kind of like where I really want to like emphasize, you have a sales process today, right? If you really want to maximize, this is like the last like moment I want you to think before we kind of tee up the resources for you. I want you to think about one product or service that you offer. Just pick one of them and just start evaluating the steps through the process, because all you want to do is you want to be, remember this, you do not want to be the Titanic. You do not want to be the Titanic. What happened to the Titanic? People said it hit an iceberg and it sank. But was it because they didn't see the iceberg? It's because they saw the iceberg too late and the ship was already going with too much momentum. And what happened is they couldn't steer it out of the way, right? How many times do you have a conversation with people, whether it's an unqualified person or you haven't talked about price up front, and you get all the way through all the time, energy, and you go all the way to the end, and then that question comes up. It's like, oh, this is out of my budget. And you just like want to bang your head against the wall. This is the opportunity where you have to start thinking more tactically. And I just want to like show this, and I'm going to share this. I know for some of your viewers, you can't see this, but there's a worksheet that I'm going to send to anyone that's interested about just how to think through your sales process, because the whole goal is for you to start outlining your steps. Tom, for example, like at Smith.ai, it's like you have initial steps when people come in, but what are the things that you're doing between each of them? What are the steps? So first of all, to create a playbook, you just write out the steps of your sales process: initial call, discovery call, etc. And then what's the value at each step? Are you actually able to exemplify and talk about how valuable those are to people? But to really think about for a moment, here's your homework assignment really quickly. Just think about, what does the customer need at each one of those steps? And what do you need? For example, like if I'm having an initial conversation with someone, I want to find out what's their biggest pain point. And likely they're thinking about, what does this company even do? So I need to figure out like how I'm educating them, but also what I need at that step is I need them to know, I need to know if they're qualified, and I actually need to talk about price in the beginning, and I want to have an additional level of concerns that they might have. If you do this and you start understanding your buyer's journey, now you can thoughtfully include companies like Smith.ai. You can include other things that you send them in between. And I'll give you like one ninja sniper kitty trick that we do. In between the initial call that we have with a prospect, this is something that has worked really successfully for us, Tom, is we will send a personalized email to that person before we actually have the initial discussion. A lead comes in, initial call scheduled. We'll do some surface level research on them or their company, depending on what their background is. And then we'll send them an actual video, 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds tops. And it is absolutely game changed the level of engagement because it's personal to them. And it actually shows and emphasizes that we really care to help them. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of the software Loom, which it's inexpensive, it's very easy to use, and it's not just the fact that you can do a quick screen recording with your face, it's what that means, right? You can show them that you're on their site, looking at their business, learning about them, the human contact with your face on the screen. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't need to be more than 30 to 60 seconds. It's easy to produce because it's just kind of like generally accepted that it can be kind of casual and doesn't need to be totally buttoned up and fully edited. It's quick, it's easy, it's highly personal, and it's highly effective.
Look at Loom, figure out a way that you can scale that within your company. You do that, and my promise to you is you will see like an uptick of probably anywhere from 3 to 5% just to get people to move to the next step with you. But people come in like blazing engaged because they're so excited behind that. So I had an example, but I just want to share like high level and wrap this up today. is the sales process. And this is an example. I wanted to show the depth of our sales process at each step of the way for those viewers that are watching this today. But we can go through at more length. I'll send this out as part of our resources, just like everything that we do in between. So your challenge that I want to help you take action on today. Number one, send the magic email to cold prospects, people that you've lost touch with. See if they're still interested and be prepared for the response. Number two, include vivid customer success stories in your sales process. And then as a company, add at least one meaningful value add touch point, like a Loom video, like a visual guide, something to your sales process in between each of your steps, which will absolutely improve your closing ratio 10% or more. And I really just wanted to share this with you because it's I want to know what you're grabbing. I'll be on the call for a little while. Tom, that's up to you. But for your listeners, if you go to the chat and you want to actually take advantage of something that we have that's specifically for Smith.ai audience today, we have up to $2,500 worth of free support resources when you fill out this 2-minute survey. It's going to ask you, one, what was your biggest takeaway? How would you rate the value of this for you today? And then what we're going to provide you is we're going to give you a business health assessment, which includes the following things. We're going to actually help you score your business on all those phases of the propeller that you and I talked about in the beginning, Tom, for the people that are listening today. And they're also going to get the biggest areas of opportunities that they can maximize to actually increase the value of their business at whatever stage they're at. And the second thing that they'll get if they choose to, if you click on that link in the chat box, they'll also get 2 hours of free advising with a senior business advisor to help you lay out a 5-year roadmap towards whatever goals you want to accomplish. And that is part of our gift to you and your audience today. It's an incredible, really, really incredible experience. And I just wanted to invite that to your users today as well.
Awesome. Really, really appreciate the time here, Cody. Your colleague and my friend, John, he dropped that link in the chat window for everyone that's on the call. So take that survey from Cultivate Advisors and you'll have a chance to win what Cody had up on the screen as part of that free offering. Just a quick little note here about Smith.ai. Cody did a nice job of kind of inserting a little bit of a plug here about Smith.ai, but we can have virtual receptionists really support your business and in particular respond immediately to any leads that come in, whether that's through live chat, phone call, or form fill. And closing that gap around speed to lead makes a huge, huge difference with helping really qualify right out of the gate, and that first initial touch point being as high quality as possible to move them to the next best step, which is a sales conversation with your in-house team. And we also have sales outreach support where you provide us with lead lists and we can do that cold calling or warm calling on your behalf and really stimulate that list of potentially closed lost leads or leads that really need some warming up and getting them back into your pipeline. So really great resources that we have and services that we have here at Smith.ai. So Cody, thank you so much for the time here today. We have a number of other Smith.ai Master Series that are coming up, and they'll be focused on both sales and marketing concepts, as well as other type of business development topics. So if you can make those, be sure to stay tuned for any announcements on our upcoming webinars on our social media channels. Thanks for attending here today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.